Stackable clues are here in Old School Runescape, and they make a massive impact to the way we do clues in this game. We are going to talk about how this works and how you can get max stacks, but more importantly, I want to talk about how this fundamentally changes the way we do clues in Old School Runescape and how it affects some of the meta as well. And you will not believe what has happened with master clues. Let's talk about how you can get stackable clues and how to get up to 5 of every single tier unlocked. There are 2 universal unlocks. One of them is completing X marks the spot, which is a very beginner quest you can do right away, of course. As soon as you do that, you will now be able to carry up to 2 of every single tier. The second universal unlock is slaying the mimic once. Once you do this, you'll open up the clue and you'll get the box, and that will allow you to carry up to 3 of every single tier. Now, the last 2 unlocks to get 4 and 5 come down to KC thresholds. There is a minor and a major for every single tier of clues. For example, easy clues, once you do 100 completions, on the 100th open, you will get the minor scroll case. On the 200th open, you'll get the major scroll case. When you use both of those, you will have increased your limit for easy clues from 4 and then 5 stackable clues total. You have to do this for every single tier of clue, and there's the thresholds available, but once you've done all this, you can now do 5 of every single clue scroll. There are a couple ways you can track your progress for stackable unlocks. Obviously, you can mentally remember what all the thresholds are or check the wiki, or you can go to your collection log, clue cases under clues, and see which ones you have unlocked so far. The other way you can do it is by going to Watson's house in Kourend and clicking on the board beside the door. This will show you your clue stats, but most notably you'll see exactly how many you can carry for each one and how many more you need to open to get the next scroll box. That's how you can get stackable clues and track your progress. Now I want to talk about how this changes the way that we do clues and how it affects some meta cases, broadly and specifically for each tier. Speaking holistically, this improves the quality of life for doing clues across the board, especially for people who are a little bit more casual about doing clues. Now, if you're specifically going out for clues, like let's say you're doing easy clues with ham members, or you're doing eclectics with mediums, that's still going to be a better experience, because if you're going to those areas, you don't have to leave as soon as you get one clue. You could stack them up instead, and I think that's going to increase the efficiency of doing these clues when doing this method. If you're doing something more passively, like through Slayer or PVM, same thing. If I'm bursting Necreals, I don't have to leave as soon as I get one hard clue, or sacrifice the rest of the hard clues I would have gotten. I could stack up to 5 instead before leaving, or 5 per task, which is a lot per task. This makes it so that I think people are generally going to be doing more clues. When it comes to juggling scroll boxes, there's a couple of interesting interactions that will prevent you from really wanting to do this. Firstly, let's say you have a stack of 5 in your inventory and a 6th one drop. Obviously, you can't pick up that 6th one. Let's say you decide to drop your stack of 5 and pick up the 6th one, and then go back to your stack of 5 to pick that up. It's straight up going to delete one of your clue scrolls. So that's something you're going to want to avoid completely, and the same behavior occurs if you have a clue scroll instead of a clue box. It will delete the boxes that you pick up in a stack. Now, if you want to, let's say, juggle boxes instead of juggling clues, you're likely not going to do this, because clue boxes only have a 3-minute timer for despawning, whereas the clue scrolls have a 60-minute timer. So if you're going to be doing any sort of juggling, it still makes sense to do them with scrolls as opposed to boxes. There is a potential impact where you could now instead get 5 clues and then conveniently open them and drop them where you want to drop them, and then go back and get more clues. As opposed to before this change, you'd have to stack the clues all in one spot, and then when you were ready to, start moving them to your destination of outside your POH, for example. This will make it a little bit more convenient if you want to transfer 5 at a time, but that's going to be, I think, up to preference. Also, with these scroll boxes, just remember that don't accidentally, drop a clue you have progress on and then click on your scroll boxes to get a new one, because that will reset the progress of the clue on the ground. So how does stackable clues affect each tier of clue individually, and is there any major changes to each of them? Beginner clues, not a very popular clue people like doing, but I could see if you're doing some tutorial skipping or birdhouses, those are going to be cases where you're going to end up with more clues than you would have had previously. For easy clues, the meta for doing easy clues largely ends up being ham members, that's just going to be a smoother process of being able to stack a bunch before having to leave. Now, medium clues have a wide variety of ways you collect them. If you're doing stuff like implings and just opening them at a bank, and this applies to all tiers, I don't think stackable clues changes it too much. Instead of opening it, getting one clue and doing something, you're going to open up a bunch, then go do a bunch of clues. But because you're in front of a bank, it doesn't feel like you're saving that much time, but obviously it's a little bit nice. Now, if you're actually collecting the medium clues, there's a couple ways to do this. If you're doing any sort of thieving method, for example, scroll boxes are going to be a nice addition because you can thieve more before having to go do the clues. Now, if you're thieving the gnomes, you're right in front of a bank anyway, so it wouldn't have been like too drastic, but obviously not having to juggle is nice if you're not into juggling. If you're doing eclectics, actually in Puro, this felt amazing because I hate pushing through the wheat fields and getting to the eclectics. So this saves you that time, which is arguably like a minute to get back to that spot. And you might also lose that spot in the meantime, or you have to get it set up by finding the eclectic and having it respawn where you want it to spawn. So huge buff for mediums there. Mediums is also where we start to do a little bit of Slayer and we get our clues, at least in a sort of meaningful sense. I do think hards drop from Slayer more, but we'll get into that in a minute. This will make it so that you can actually obviously do your entire task and likely not hit the limit, or if you do hit the limit, I mean, hey, you've gathered 5 clues, that's pretty good. Hard clues are where we're going to see a huge shift when it comes to Slayer more than anything. Slayer drops a ton of hard clues. It's like the meat of where you're doing that skill. The tasks are longer. Me personally, I had a kind of soft rule where once I got a clue during a task, that was the only clue I'd take. I'd let all the other ones just not happen, block them. Now I can have up to 5, so I will be doing a lot more clues as a result. Also, if you're the type of person to leave in between your tasks, you obviously don't have to do that. Outside of Slayer, you've got Jellies, which is a very active way to get hard clues. That's going to be great for getting your stack there, but I know a lot of people who do Jellies probably do a little bit of juggling, so it'll be preference depending on what you want to do there. Skatizo is an interesting one. Skatizo, I've always really disliked having to get my one hard clue, which is guaranteed, and then have to go do it. And if I get a wilderness step, I have to re-gear everything, and it was a bit frustrating. And I would stack up a lot of totems at once and then kind of do it this way. Now, when juggling became 60 minutes, I started to do a little bit more of that because it made sense for Skatizo. Do all your KC and then do all your clues. Now, you kind of got that middle ground. You can maybe get 5 totems, get your 5 hard clues, and then go do them, plus maybe an elite or 2. So Skatizo could become a little bit more of, I think I'm going to consider doing it every 5 totems as opposed to doing it every like 20 totems for me. Thieving is also a method for hard clues. This is stuff like Hallowed Sepulcher. Hallowed Sepulcher, you can get multiple tiers of clues, so this is going to make it so you can stick around in Sepulcher for longer by stacking up a bunch of clues. The Rogue's Chest in the Wilderness gives hard clues at a fairly respectable rate, and you won't have to leave after getting 1 now. You can actually stack up a bunch, so that's actually a huge buff. And then PVM-wise, the biggest thing here is Seracnus. Seracnus drops hard clues fairly commonly, and elite clues as well, so I expect people to camp Seracnus more without having to leave. DKs is another case where this is definitely going to be a huge change. Because it takes so long to get there, find an open world, I tend to do very extended trips at DK, and if I'm doing a task, it's my whole task in one trip. Because the clue rate is a 1 in 42, it's very common to get 1 clue, and as soon as I got 1 clue, that's it. That's the only one I'm getting. I'm not going to leave my spot. So this change is going to make it very good for tribe raiding specifically, because I'll likely end up with multiple clues by the time I'm done. Elite clues are a little bit different because you're not actively farming them as much, outside of maybe camping Seracnus, but it could make some positive impacts in other ways. Pretty much all high-level PVM drops elite clues, so anytime you're doing high-level PVM and you get one, you don't have to stop what you're currently doing. I think this is most beneficial with group content like Nex or raids, because previously if you got a clue, you'd have to leave. I mean, for Nex, you probably wouldn't if you had kill count stored up, but for raids, you might consider taking a break to go do that. Or you decide to drop it on the ground, or sacrifice the possibility of getting more elite clues during the raid. Now, you don't have to worry. You can send all that content without having to break up your group. Master clues. Now, this is a huge change to master clues for a couple of different reasons. If you like to stack your clues and then open a bunch at once, you'll know that getting a master clue, while it kind of feels good, was also a little bit frustrating because it breaks up your opening session. You might get a master clue, go do it, spend 15 minutes, come back, open, and then like the next 1 or 2 caskets is another master clue. And honestly, I just want to open up my caskets in peace. So this change makes it so that I can stack up to 5 master clues. Honestly, I could probably get through whatever stack I have, other than if I had a big stack of elite, without ever really hitting that limit, at least too quickly. There is another major change for master clues, and it has to do with Watson. With Watson, you can hand in 1 easy, medium, hard, and elite and get 1 master in return. With the stackable changes, this is a huge impact to Watson Masters. You can now hand in 5 of each tier and get yourself 5 master clues in return. Doing 5 at once is incredible, but it doesn't just end there. You can instead decide to passively get your masters through opening elites, hards, etc. Once you have 5 of them, you can juggle all 5 individually on the ground, then go turn in your 5 of each to Watson, and now you have 10 master clues you can do at once, and that is completely unheard of. It doesn't necessarily speed up the amount of clues you're doing, at least maybe a little bit it does. What it does do is make it so you're doing it in an aggregate. You're doing it all at once, which I prefer, to be honest. And it doesn't just end there. You could stretch this a little bit further. You could have had the 5 in your bank on the floor, open up a clue, now you have 6, and then you go turn in your 5. Now you have 11 you can do at once. Or you can even have already loaded 3 of the 4 into Watson, the medium, hard, elite, keep out the easy, turn in all 5, go get an extra easy, now you're getting 6 from Watson. So all combined, you can do like 12 master clues at once at Watson now fairly easily, and that is a massive change when it comes to hunting for the pet and hunting for uniques. Listen, I'm sure I missed something with these changes, and there's a bunch of ways you can acquire clues I did not mention. So if I did miss something significant or another discovery comes up, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, what do you think of these changes? Are you a clue hunter and excited for these changes? Are you not a clue hunter and you're also excited for these changes?